Good morning, everyone. And for me, it's a real pleasure to be part of this group today. Also, because I can play a partner to Anna, uh, thanks to our common name. But more importantly, because I can bring perhaps the perspective of a part of the European Commission on the topic of this discussion. Um, because from our side, the report comes at the right moment. We heard about the challenges, but we also heard about the opportunities. And we think that the report comes at the right moment to address both. And in a part of Europe where perhaps we need to pay special attention when it comes to the development of the social economy, the non-profit sector, the third sector, it depends how you want to call it, but it doesn't matter. It's all this part of this ecosystem of actors that can bring solutions on the ground in regional pockets that perhaps the state cannot deliver or the private sector is not interested to deliver, and bring more dynamic to the system and more agility. Also, because although I agree with the analysis on the challenges, maybe in terms of personal disposition, I'm very always focused on opportunities, and even seeing challenges as opportunities. And there we have been looking at an opportunity which is relevant to the topic at hand, which is very much about the rise of the global market for green and social investments. We have seen that in the last years, it has been further triggered by the successive crises that global communities have been facing, in particular the pandemic in the last years, and certainly with through the common challenge of the green transition and the fight against climate. Which goes beyond regions. So this rise of the global market in social investment and green investment also sits, when it comes to Europe, on an emerging trend on venture philanthropy that we have seen. And I give here a number just to give us a scale, and that's a number before COVID. It's kind of outdated. It's from 2017, whereby in the EU that year, Investors for Impact funded close to 12,000 social purpose organizations, mobilizing close to 800 million euros. So these are important numbers. We have seen inspiring examples, initiatives, and investments of different kinds generating social impact, from crowdfunding to impact investing to social bonds to philanthropy, volunteering, or tech for good. So all of that is very, very much interesting, and we need to keep it in mind because it shows how the social economy, or what we call a social impact ecosystem, in the narrative of the report, are showing how this ecosystem can actually reinforce place-based dynamics, empower people to bring growth and jobs, bring cohesion, and the green and the digital transitions, and even the other two transitions that we heard of, which are equally challenging. At the same time, we're very much aware, looking at the EU member states, 27 of them, behaviors and cultures, traditions are disparate. There's many differences. Economic, socioeconomic factors, state structures, governance, rules are very different. And this is something to keep in mind. Looking at the social economy, we have member states where we have figures for the social economy contributing up to 10% of the EU GDP. That's impressive. But we also have a large number of them where the contribution of the social economy is recorded at 1 or 2% of the GDP. That's where we see potential. That's where the challenge lies, but that's where the potential lies. And clearly, this is a potential and a challenge that is well identified within the 11 countries covered by the report. So one may be asking, unlocking private capital for social good, important for all EU member states. What are the ingredients? How can it be done? How can it be done? Looking at the ingredients, at least from the level where we're standing in Brussels, as the poster behind me says, first one, strong civil society. Easier said than done, but it's a fundamental ingredient. Committed donors, both private and corporate, independent organizations, but also a dynamic system of social entrepreneurs, from startups to established industrial actors. Another key set of ingredients about regulatory framework, the rules, the policies, the business environment. These are enablers. They bring enablers both for social economy actors and entrepreneurs, but also they can create incentives for individual and corporate donors and investors. And the third level of ingredients that we shouldn't be forgetting, and I think Fabian also ended with that, it's about cooperation. It's about synergies and active cooperation and complementarities between the different levels and the different actors, private, public, central government, regional, local level, Brussels, capitals, and EU regions. So the report and the evidence it brings, I think it helps us to understand to what extent these enablers, these ingredients, are present across the Central and Eastern Europe. And it also helps us to better understand the features of the ecosystem there and the challenges that need to be addressed. And one element, perhaps, to take as a positive element is that more than half of citizens in the 11 countries researched, I think it's 48% to be exact, but Anna will correct us, make financial donations to social causes. And volunteering is becoming an important trend. So there are trends to build on. We need to find the right enablers for these trends to become waves and become part of the establishment, whether you're looking at the societies or the economies. So let me then bring in a few elements as to how we in Brussels, working at the European Commission, are trying to enable at European level the social economy ecosystem or the social impact ecosystem. First of all, I'll give you the words, the mantra, in this case, an economy that works for the people, for people. This is one of the key political priorities of this commission. It's an area where we have worked hard in the last few years and that we will continue working and that helped us present a number of initiatives and actions. It's also a cornerstone for an inclusive and sustainable growth and a vital conductor, I would say, of the European Green Deal, which is our growth strategy for the future. So the role of the philanthropic sector and the impact investors from that point of view is very important, is key, I would say, for an economy that works for people. First of all, through the innovative financial models that they can bring and sustainable partnerships that they build with public authorities or with industry, but also through the knowledge and capacity that they generate through networks, experience, advisory support, on top of the donations that they bring. And you may be asking, all of that is fine, what is the role of the European Commission in all this? So I'll try then to explain at least 4 areas in which we are active in order to help this ecosystem take off the ground. First of all, about the policy framework and the regulatory framework. The policy framework, maybe some of you are familiar with. 2 years ago, the European Commission put on the table the Social Economy Action Plan. What is it? It's a communication, it's a policy document that sets out the policy vision at European level for the social economy for the next decade. So it's a first seed that we planted for the future. At the same time, same year, 2 years ago, it's interesting to note that in another policy document, perhaps that we don't expect that much to talk about social economy, that is the EU industrial strategy, we identified the proximity and social economy as one of the 14 industrial ecosystems that the Commission considers as critical for the recovery post-COVID, for the twin green and digital transition, and also for longer-term sustainability and strategic autonomy for the EU. On top of it, this year, before the summer, we presented a proposal for a council recommendation on what we call framework conditions for the social economy. and that is now being discussed by the member states at the Council. What you find in this proposal is principles that the Commission is putting in place through this Council recommendation, a soft tool, not a hard tool, in different areas where we find that there is importance for governments to pay attention in order to reinforce this ecosystem, from skills to social innovation, access to funding, public procurement, state aid, taxation, social impact measurement and management, or visibility and recognition across policies. We also issued before the summer two staff working documents as guidance in the area of taxation for the treatment of cross-border taxation donations, and also for the implementation of the so-called principle of non-discrimination in the member states when it comes to cross-border donations. More recently, after the summer, on the 5th of September, we adopted a proposal for a directive to facilitate cross-border activities of non-profit associations through the European Cross-Border Association. We hope that this proposal will create an option for those actors that work across borders and need to scale up their activities, are present in more than one member states, to use in order to face less administrative barriers in the single market. And we hope that this can be also an opportunity for actors of the ecosystem of the non-profit sector in Central and Eastern European countries. Second, of course, when you think about the Commission, is very much about the funding and the investment. It's very much about the money. And indeed, there we create hooks and opportunities to mobilize funds for the social economy ecosystem under the InvestEU program and the social investment and skills window. You will hear more about that from my colleague who will be sitting at the panel, but also through a number of instruments, spending instruments, for instance, Horizon Europe, cohesion funding, which is in the hands of the member states, Next Generation EU, the special facility and the program that we launched after the pandemic, also in the hands of the member states, but also the Single Market Program, which supports SMEs. Third is about capacity building and awareness raising. There, we are working very much to see how we can, through online seminars, through other type of awareness-raising campaigns, we can help experts in different European countries share the same narrative, contribute to the same narrative, have this capacity in order to address governments, policymakers, and also the social entrepreneurs themselves. So there's online seminars on social impact investing, but also seminars, for instance, on public procurement that we are launching and capacity building activities in that area. Fourth area is a specific focus, and Max mentioned that, thank you, on the green and digital transitions. Because we think that these are two areas where the social economy and that ecosystem can play a particular role, both in terms of the needs that they have in order to enable their potential, and also in terms of the value that they can generate across the economy and the society when it comes to the green and digital transition. And for that reason, we don't only work with regulation, we don't only work with funding, we work in a participatory, I would say, governance model. And this is what the transition pathway for proximity and social economy is about. We presented, we launched this ecosystem, this pathway last year in November, but it's not the Commission's pathway. It's a series of action areas and actions, 14 action areas for the green and digital transition, 30 actions that we co-created together with close to 500 stakeholders and that we are co-implementing together with stakeholders. There is a call for pledges that is out. The next cutoff date is the 1st of December. We have already published 122 pledges of stakeholders in the different areas. And I really want to thank the Social Impact Alliance, and for that, personally, Anna, for the energy and the dedication and the pledge that you have submitted. We hope to see more pledges coming also from countries in Central and Eastern Europe, because we want to really build a community of engaged and committed stakeholders to work on these two areas. Our role will be to facilitate and also create a platform for matchmaking, for facilitating those stakeholders working together. And that brings me back to the people, because indeed this ecosystem is very much about the people. It's the citizens, it's the entrepreneurs on the ground, it's this dynamism. And I think the message of the reports and the message that I would like to end with is to enable the people. Enable them either as donors, as investors, as social entrepreneurs. This is something that we at the European Commission are committed to doing. First of all, in the name of an economy that works for people, but also in the name of European values, which are at the heart of the European project. So we're grateful that reports like this one bring us the evidence that we need to develop those sounded messages and evidence-based policies. And we hope that we will not quite do as the poster behind me says. Yes, say it in Brussels, but take the message out of Brussels into the governments in the member states and on the ground where the people are. Thank you.